That's like such a great question. And I do think support system plays a huge role. And again, the idea of asking for help, like this putting, that's why they call it like the manly front, right? Like putting on this manly front of, I got this, I'm fine, I'm just under a little stress, right? It's normal for guys to rage more, like, or even processing the feeling to say, is this really anger? Well, really, at the end of the day, anger is just sadness. There's some root to sadness, but then you'd have to admit you were sad, and sad may equal weak. Or I'm the provider and I can't let my wife and kids or husband and kids see that I'm weak, because the word weak comes, where women, I think, they're told you're so brave for sharing your story and celebrated for this vulnerability. Where men, it's like, get your stuff together, like, man up, right? I have 3 brothers, so totally raised differently, like completely, yeah, for the most part, different standards of just keep this to you, please don't cry, you look ridiculous crying. Well, with a woman, it's just like, let it out, it's gonna feel so much better after you do it. But if you're a male and you don't surround yourself with those types of people, especially cultural differences.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm happy to welcome Miss Annie Delre here with me. You're a health and wellness coach.
Yes.
Tell me what that entails.
So usually when people are like, well, what's wellness? The first thing I ask them is, well, what does wellness mean to you? And it's like, but really, mind and body. I teach something such as called the wellness wheel. Have you heard that before?
No.
It's similar to a pizza pie, and each slice is something different. So financial wellness, physical wellness, environmental wellness. And by teaching just that wheel, people are able to break it down of, what can I relate to? And I will say most people can feel as if they're suffering in multiple areas. But I like the wheel because it brings more clarity and mindfulness. And that's really what this is about. That's self-development, mindfulness. So again, wellness is different to everyone, but meeting them where they're at with each section, I guess.
Well, tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay. So I'm originally from Jersey, and now I live in San Diego.
Wow.
If anyone's switched coast, then you know it's a wild ride, just reading different people or being around different people. I was fortunate to have a bachelor's in psychology, so I was able to adapt, I feel, quicker than some people, just because I understood people, I would say, more than most. But that was a wild ride. And then I earned my master's in integrative wellness coaching because I was so interested in the field. But I was seeing that, and you may have noticed this, coaches can have anywhere from a free online course with 7 modules up to a master's plus, or certifications. And I really, really wanted to be an expert in my field. I really wanted to have something that set me apart. So I made it my whole life, right? I invested a lot of money and time into this, but because I believed in it so much. So overachiever. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. If I were to describe myself, no, that's not a good way to describe it. But someone always striving for more. And because of the things that I've overcome, I know for a fact other people can do it. It's a fact. So I think that makes life really exciting when you have faith of that people can change and advance when that's what they want.
Well, was it just a general want to help people that you got into this, or did something happen in your life that maybe caused you to get into it?
Um, both, I would say. Coming from a dysfunctional family,
I
um,
understand.
with things with different experiences, one of them being two brothers suffering from addiction
Mm,
and growing up with that since high school, and one of them being your best friend. One of them was a year older than me. And unfortunately, actually, the date was 2 days ago, was his anniversary from passing away. He overdosed and
um,
passed away during COVID. So that made me really interested in studying people. That was like, what is going on with mental health? What are we doing? And how are different people reacting? And there can be thousands of books on it, and everyone's journey is different.
yeah.
You can write a book about how to be a sister to someone who suffers from addiction, and it's still a different experience for everyone.
Mhm.
Um, so that prompted me. And the difference being, though, there's a difference between a therapist and a coach, right? So I think everyone needs a therapist at some time in their life. I really do. But coaching is a luxury. Not everyone needs a coach or would value a coach. But
Mhm.
because of the differences between coaching and therapy, so therapy, and I probably don't have to tell you this, but I guess I'll just say it because other people are listening. um, Therapy being holding space for you in the present and then unpacking the past. That is important. I think healing from your past allows you that forward movement. And therapy is a beautiful thing. You have someone who's licensed, a professional, helping you go through that journey. While coaching is coping with the present and what are we doing for the future? Like, that's really the focus. What is your future? And when I learned the difference, I thought to myself, therapy is going to break your heart. It plays a purpose. I'm so glad there's people who have that calling, but
Mhm.
I was more attracted to coaching because I was like, well, what's the next step after healing? And respecting both professions.
Mhm. You know, I got into doing this because I wanted to help people, and I found that a reoccurring theme, I guess you'd say, with folks that are so passionate about helping others
Mm-hmm.
is they've either experienced something or someone close to them went through something traumatic.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I'm pretty open with my audience, and I don't look for sympathy. I just tell people what I've gone through, so maybe they can connect with me, and they can find out there's hope. Um,
Yeah.
I
Great
was
word.
I was molested as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was the my journey of the mental problems that I had. So I suffered through depression through my whole childhood, and even to this day. Started drinking and doing drugs at a very early age. I was like
Mm-hmm.
12 when I started, you know, it wasn't drinking beer. I was drinking hard liquor, and, you know, started out just smoking weed. And the next thing you know, I'm doing crack and snorting coke and, you know, every kind of drug you can imagine. Took me, gosh, I was, guess around close to 40 when I had a breakdown. Ended up in an institution.
Mm-hmm.
Finally started getting the help that I needed.
Beautiful.
And that journey was going really well. And as I told you before we started the show, I've got a lot of health problems.
Mm-hmm.
My spine, diabetes, and my spine is because of my diabetes, high blood pressure. I mean, you name it, I got it. I sound pitiful.
Oh no.
But you know, I don't say these things as I say to get sympathy from anyone. Just someone out there is going through something similar or even worse, and then there is hope. And that's why I like having folks like you come on. And you have a whole lot of techniques that you use. I noticed you do hypnotherapy and EFT, which is what, the tapping.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And
Um,
earlier, oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I was just going to say, and what else do you do?
Another thing that I focus on is neuro-linguistic programming.
Mhm.
So the idea of what we're hearing affects our brain and, more importantly, our unconscious mind.
Mhm.
And I would say, and I don't, this isn't a very specific technique, but teaching clients about the difference between the conscious and unconscious mind and allowing them to realize, once you understand this is happening, you have more control over it. And that's a beautiful thing. Again, empowering people. Like, don't be the victim to yourself.
Oh, no, no,
Don't be
no.
the victim to anyone. And thankfully there's solution, there's tools. So hypnotherapy, of course, the point is reaching your unconscious mind, because that's what if you were aware and remembered it all, you wouldn't be going under, if that makes sense. You wouldn't even be seeking support for it. Another big thing I do is journaling. That's a
Oh, yeah.
huge thing that I recommend. Just the idea of getting your thoughts down on paper. I teach something, it's called the brain dump. It's like not the most attractive phrase, but the brain dump. And specifically for my clients suffering from insomnia, it
Oh, yeah.
happens with pretty much any anxiety, but sleep, right? Like that is, yeah, I don't have to tell you. I
Yeah.
don't have to tell you. So the idea of doing a brain dump before bed, and this is every and anything. This could be cupcakes for kids' birthday party, pick up bananas, talk to boss about raise, like the big and small, everything that's on your brain, just dumping it.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
not a to-do list. It can be, but it's not meant for that.
Yeah. I hate it when you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and all of a sudden all this stuff rushes into your head. And why?
All this stuff, and then a middle school trauma comes up, and then like something you
Yeah.
feel shame over that you said or did. I know. And you're like, stay and get behind me, because I don't know why I'm being tortured at 2 a.m. and then I have to go to bed.
Right.
I know.
But why is it that someone goes through a trauma at an early age and then they just block it out of their mind, and 30 years later all of a sudden it just pops up?
Well, actually, and I don't share this often with people, but that's what happened. I had a childhood sex abuse, and I shut it out of my brain until I moved to California. So I was an adult getting hit with these memories, and I was like, how do you process this? What do you,
Yeah.
my brain, I guess, what, when you think like everything happens for a reason, or there's a bigger plan, my brain was protecting me. It was like, you know what? This is what you're doing right now. I'm going to do you a favor and not tell you this is happening, pretty much. And then when you're ready, that's your time to heal. That's your journey. And I think something for people like that, for who experience that, whether it's they remember or not, get help, talk to someone about it. It's really overwhelming. It's very upsetting. And I guess I don't have to tell you, but it's so sad. And you're grieving a child. Essentially, you're grieving this beautiful little person that you
Mm.
are. And then you start questioning everything. Am I like blank because of this? Do I have trouble with communication because of this? I mean, so many things, right, come to play.
Yeah.
Is this affecting all my relationships with men now, or whatever it may be? I don't know if I answered your question. I don't even know.
Well, it's just weird how your brain just blocks that out.
Hmm.
And then out of the blue, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I remember this happening like it happened yesterday. But 2 days ago, I it wasn't even in my head.
Totally. And oh, OMG, I've been holding on to this trauma in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this, right? Like all this stress that I've put on my body is, aside from diagnoses, right? I don't want to downplay pain. Like that's not fair to do. But the idea of also what emotional pain and baggage am I holding that can help relieve some things.
Yeah.
But you don't start digging into those things until you realize there's a problem.
Yeah. It was so weird because everything got triggered over a breakup. I had been through so many breakups, but for some reason, this one particular one
Mm-hmm.
just I just fell apart, and that wasn't me. I didn't do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, I'm in a closet curled up in a little ball, and I can't stop crying. And I mean, usually I could walk away from a relationship like, okay, no big deal. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I'm hearing voices in my head telling me all these terrible things and to do terrible things to myself, and I can't get it out. And I was like, I can't handle this. And that's when I went into the institution. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the things you mentioned, like the journaling, they had us do that every day. And we'd sit around in a group and talk, and then they'd do one-on-ones. And uh, they were really quick to dose out medication and stuff, but they didn't really tell us what to do after we left. It was like, okay, you can go home now. Okay. And then you go find you a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the time it's almost as if they're staring off into space while you're talking. They're just, I don't know, they hear it so much they're sick of it. And well,
Compassion fatigue.
yeah, here's you some medicine. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those medicines, they either didn't do anything or they made me feel worse. But
Or you need a medicine for the medicine.
yeah, exactly. I weaned myself off of them. It took me a little while, but I got off of them, and I got into meditation, and that's helped me more than medicine ever did.
Ever did. Yeah, that's another thing I teach, definitely. Um, and just a side note on meditation, I don't want to discount what you just said, but I think when a lot of people hear the word meditation, they're like, sit for 30 minutes with my legs crossed and like this and like, because my
Yeah.
clients get a bit scared of that word, or they'll say, I try, Annie, I'll try, my thoughts are racing, but I'm not good at it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And what I say to them is, actually, you catching yourself is the win. That's the point. The whole point is mindfulness.
Mhm.
So sit there for 1 minute, and if you realize you have 100 thoughts, guess what? You stopped yourself though at one point and thought, I'm meditating.
Mhm.
Try. And then you try again, try again. So I love that that worked for you. I love
Yeah,
that
I
that worked
I
for you
can't do this thing though.
because it doesn't have to, right? Like they do
Right.
walking meditations. There's so many forms.
Oh yeah. Well, I ended up being diagnosed with PTSD because of the trauma,
Mm,
and being in crowds had always bothered me. But from that point where I had my breakdown, it seems like it was worse. I just didn't want to be around anyone. And then I would start to I'd start my meditation. I guess you say walking meditation. I would think about everything before I got into whatever crowd, and then I would tell myself, okay, everything's going to be fine. It's just everybody does this. I'd get in, I'd know where exits were, or say if I had my wife with me or my
mhm,
daughter with me, I would kind of focus on them if I was feeling uneasy. And now it almost instantaneously. I think about it before I get in. I don't even think about it for a minute, and I'm already okay. I got on the subway in New York. Okay, if I can do that,
You can
I
do
can
it.
handle anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You were forming a new neuro pathway. You're like, this is my new thinking. I like to explain it to people of like, think of a big cornfield, like a
Mhm.
huge cornfield. If you were to just start a path, it would go down, right? Like the what are they called? Like the husk? No, that's not what it's called. The like when
It's
it's long,
the stem
stem.
of it.
Yeah. The stems will go down. But if you look back or you try to do it again, it wasn't bulldozed down. It wasn't like perfectly smushed because
Right.
you went through one time. But if you keep going and going and going, you flatten that. That's a new path. So that's how I
Right.
like to think of the brain or something such as meditation. Like, you're just building the path. And of course, it's not going to be great the first time because you haven't used that path before. So you're you're starting from the beginning. And congratulations, you went into the maze, or like, you not maze, you went into the cornfield. Like,
Right.
awesome, before you weren't there.
It said stem, but I think it's stalk. So,
Stop.
yeah. Dee
I'm
dee
gonna
dee.
I'm gonna call my second grade teacher to tell them this is a word I learned then. No, I'm just kidding.
Um, my cornfield would have creepy children coming out.
Have you seen, oh my gosh, have you seen the movie Pearl? It's somewhat new.
Pearl. I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay. I mean, if you want to upset yourself, watch it. There is a cornfield. Like, Children in the Corn, it was so much cooler. This one is just,
All righty then.
I don't even know how to.
Now,
Yeah.
I know you help a lot of women with empowerment, and
Mhm.
I know that's important. But from a guy's perspective, there's a lot of us who, I mean, let's face it, we've been taught to hold back our feelings and not show them that you're not really manly if you
Mhm.
cry or you open up about your feelings. And I think it's been a big contributor of why we're seeing such a high percentage of men who delete themselves. uh, I think the statistics close to like 80% of I can't say the word because we'll get censored, but
Okay.
self deletion. Um, I mean, is that why you see so many guys just say, I can't take it anymore?
That's like such a great question. And I do think support system plays a huge role. And again, the idea of asking for help, like this putting, that's why they call it like the manly front, right? Like, putting on this manly front of, I got this, I'm fine, I'm just under a little stress, right? um it's normal for guys to rage more, like, or even processing the feeling to say, is this really anger? Well, really, at the end of the day, anger is just sadness. There's some root to sadness, but then you'd have to admit you were sad, and sad may equal weak. Or I'm the provider and I can't let my wife and kids or husband and kids see that I'm weak, because the word weak comes, where women, I think, they're told, you're so brave. You're so brave for sharing your story and celebrated for this vulnerability. Where
Mhm.
men, it's like, get your stuff together. Like, man up, right? I have 3 brothers, so totally raised differently. Like, completely, yeah, for the most part, different standards of just keep this to you. Please don't cry. You look ridiculous crying. Well, with a woman, it's just like, let it out. Let it out. It's going to feel so much better after you do it. But if you're a male and you don't surround yourself with those types of people, especially cultural differences, like, I'm part Italian, and when around some Italian men, I've noted, but again, like, it's not just them. I'm just thinking of an example of the idea of, like, I'm the provider. I want my wife and kids to see me as a strong person. I don't know if I just talked in circles.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm not saying that a guy has to cry every time something goes wrong, but I mean, let's face it, you need to get this stuff out. It builds up. I mean, you've got a lot of pressure on you as a man to be the provider, and
Totally.
you're the protector. You've got all these roles, and when you fall short, then you feel emasculated. It's what happened to me when the doctor said, you can't work anymore. I had to retire, and I'm relying on the government to send me a disability check each month. And that's just not the way I was raised. And, my wife goes to work every day, and I feel like, okay, well, if she's going off to work, I got to get up. I got her coffee ready, her breakfast ready, her lunch is ready, and out the door. And it's, oh, excuse me. And it's almost like the roles have been reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel less than, especially when all my guy friends are working, they're working hard jobs and working late hours and doing making good money. And I'm not.
Yeah. The comparison game.
Yeah.
And this isn't recent, right? That men have those expectations. I really liked that you used the word protector, because I do think that's if you're seen as a vulnerable person, then your guard is down, and you can't, how can you protect me if you can't protect yourself? But not realizing I'm more of a threat to this family if I don't have my stuff together than crying and releasing this. That's why I encourage journaling for men, because they're not talking to people about it. So at least get it out in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And most of us, we don't want somebody to feel sorry for us. We got to get this out.
Yeah.
I am emasculated right now. And, why do I feel so less than? If I passed away, I think the checks would stop coming in. So how's my wife going to be taken care of? That kind of thing.
So much pressure.
And in early retirement, you don't get a big check.
Mm-hmm. I've worked with, I've worked with hundreds of men, and I will say it's really hard to hear them talk about them trying to express their feelings to their partner and their partner telling them to man up. Because your partner is supposed to be the person you go to. You're supposed to protect each other. You're supposed to be loving each other and building each other up. If the roles were reversed, you'd probably be more than happy to provide for your wife.
For sure.
You'd give her compassion and love, remind her it's not your fault. Go into the acceptance phase with her in a loving way. But when men are literally taught by their families growing up, man up, like, don't cry. Why are you crying? You're a baby. And then your wife is telling you, and then if you have kids, then your wife is telling you man up for the kids. You have double guilt. It's so sad. It's so sad. And so that means you'd have to get support outside of your partner. And it's hard enough to tell your partner sometimes.
I will say I have a really good relationship with my wife, and we talk, and she's always reassuring me, it's fine. And I can't seem to make her understand that I still feel that I feel less than. She may say it's okay, but to me, it's still not. And I don't know, I'm harder on myself than anyone else is. But what do I do? How do I move forward?
Something I have clients do is, well, it's journal, right? It is journal, but it's to journal what would life be like if you didn't have those thoughts. So seeing a different version of you, say, or the miracle question, tomorrow you wake up and a miracle has happened that your number one challenge is erased. What does life look like now? And the hope for the exercise is realizing, how is this serving me, this challenge? Oh, wait, it's not. Look what my life could look like. Wow, look at the possibilities. This is really holding me back. So it's not that you have to be more mindful. You're mindful of this. Like, this is something that you are, you've accepted. So now it's like, but what am I going to do? Because I don't want to live like this. I don't want to hold on to this feeling.
And, you know, and with what happened to me as a child, that's emasculating in itself on top of all this. So it seems like everything that's supposed to define me as a man it's gone in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I am sure that there's someone out there that's gone through worse than I ever did. They're going to need to know, what do I do? So, I mean, I know the journaling and all that, but I mean, does that, the journaling actually, I don't know, how does that work to get that out of your head?
It helps you realize that, and it sounds like you may also notice this of, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm my own worst enemy. I would never talk to my kids like this. I would never talk to my wife like this. I would never talk to in front of a stranger like this. Like, this isn't me. And another thing I really, that helps is mantras or affirmations. Do you have experience with that?
I do. I used to do it every day,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, it's an excuse, but I get so busy sometimes first thing in the morning that it just escapes me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally, right? We have a billion thoughts. That's why the brain dumps exist. So with that, and this is another thing about, like, if your partner's on your journey or not, or like for you on your team, is where can you post it so that you see it? So a common one is in an office, if you have an office, or okay, right. The other one, a big one, is the bathroom, putting it on like the bottom of your mirror or wherever. Again, your partner, if your partner's a jerk, that one's not the great one. I mean, I've heard of partners not being kind about it. But the other thing is, if you have a partner, you each have a side of the bed, right? You're not both on the left side or both on the right side, unless you're cuddling. So some people have nightstands. You put it on the nightstand. It's the first thing you see when you go to, or when you wake up and when you go to bed.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
idea.
kind of forcing you.
Yeah.
Another one that's really worked for my clients is having an alarm go off at a certain time that's written in it.
That's a good idea.
So I don't know if this one would be appropriate one, because it's whatever resonates with you, but something like, I radiate masculinity.
Okay.
Or I embody masculinity. And something to keep in mind is, if you were to, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like, if you're a woman who hates men, okay, let's just say that, okay, if you hear the word masculinity, you might hear aggressive, fighters, cruel, right? Like, it means different things to different people. But if masculinity means to you, being a strong provider, accepting that this is what life is like now, like being confident that your wife is the provider, and that's a form of love, and this is actually a good sign. And the idea of, like, this is testing our relationship in the best of ways, This is just another proof of this woman loves me and I love her for loving me like this. So if that's what masculinity equals to you, that word's going to be really powerful.
You know, our vows were in sickness and in health.
I think some people forget that part too. You don't have to say it, like, you don't have to do that vow, people. Like, just remember that before you get married, because it does mean something.
How does a man deal with a spouse that is, you know, like you said, man up and don't be that? How do you live with someone like that? I mean, to me, that'd
Whenever,
be a sign to move on.
well, and that's not what I tell them because I'm obviously not allowed to.
Right.
But I ask, where are you going to get this support from? You're lacking it at home. Okay, this is how your wife talks to you. Would you talk to her this way? What would you do if your kid repeated what your wife said to you to someone at school? And these are things like, I don't want to say like my wife's a horrible person, but like I don't even like my wife. I don't even want to be around her. She makes me feel like crap. But and that's when I say like you should meet with a therapist, because the therapist is going to ask those questions, because I'm always forward movement, right? So I'm like, if this is unhealthy, this isn't meant for you. This is doing emotional damage to you. And if there's kids involved, you're upsetting your psyche and you're upsetting these kids. And all they're doing is downloading what's happening around them.
Yes. That's right. It's the relationship I had with my first wife, the damage that it did to my children. You know, they're adults, but the way we treated each other, you know, I know with my drinking and the drug use and always wanting to work and not be at home, I know that was a contributing factor. But my ex went as far as to, you know, my wife just stopped cleaning the house and cooking meals and all that. So I would take over when I got home from work. And usually I was too tired of cleaning. So, you know, when I worked for the city, I worked 4 10s. So Fridays was usually a day off. And if I had to work Friday, then I'd spend Saturday cleaning the house and getting everything, you know, in nice, neat, orderly fashion. And she would purposely tell the kids to destroy the house right after I got through cleaning. And I didn't find that out until my kids were grown.
And the confliction your kids must have felt.
Yeah. Dad was just a jerk, so treat him like crap.
I have found that a lot too with the men who are divorced, is how sickening it is that the women turn the kids against them. I've heard men that their wives cheated on them, and then the wives tell their kids that the husband cheated on her.
Yeah, that's what she did.
It's uncomfortable. Like I don't understand how selfish of you to do to a child, how selfish of you to cheat, but also how selfish of you to confuse a child like that.
That's exactly what she did.
Yeah, it's
I
I really feel for men. It's they don't have it easy. They have pressures that women weren't treated equals for years and still aren't. Right? I don't want to discount that, but men have struggles that women will never fully understand because we're not men.
and this, you know, I will say that I don't understand all the things that women are going through.
Right.
You know, I'll be honest with you, and maybe it's just because I treat women with respect. You know, sorry guys, I'm not trying to sound like a wussy, but yeah, I try to be very respectful to women because, you know, my grandmother basically raised me, and so that was my role model.
Beautiful.
But I mean, from my perspective, see women being treated the same way as men, you know, equal ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what are women going through that is so different now. I mean, that's what am I trying to say? How is it not better than what it used to be?
Mm-hmm. And I think actually you're putting a great point out there is it is better. I don't know why more people aren't celebrating the win of it is better. Like society is so messed up. Let me just put that to a side, right? I there's madness, right? We're kind of in a circus.
Mm.
But like progressively for women's rights and we've made it so far. Why are we like and you get what you make of it. So stop being the victim. That's a big thing I really like to teach is like for women, right? Because they're like, oh, we make 80 cents on the dollar. I don't know. I might be making that up. I think that's the
That's what
statistic.
they say, but they
But
don't put in all the other factors of why it's like that.
or I work with a ton of women who make more than their significant other.
Right? My
And
wife did, or still does.
like, and these are women's like some of them are in their late 20s, early 30s. Like this is the new wave. And if people haven't noticed, they're like pushing for women hires. They're giving extra money to women businesses. So people are trying. I'm not like maybe we're not doing our best, but they're they're trying. Like I feel like only recently have people even started talking about men's mental health. Because they were like, well, forget men, women are suffering. But that's not fair because we're all human. Like we're all suffering. We all feel sadness, depression, happiness, joy, anger. We all do it, even internationally, because humans are humans.
I mean, to me, it's a case by case thing, um, because
Mm,
woman A may have grown up in a perfect environment and loving household and everything was hunky dory, but woman B was abused, whether physically or sexually, even mentally.
totally.
And same thing. I mean, men, there's guys I know that they had everything given to them and they had a wonderful childhood and mommy and daddy spent all the time with them. And I know guys that their parents just went off and did their own thing and they were left to their own device. Nobody took care of them or nobody nourished them. Nobody
Mm.
taught them any right from wrong. Everything's case by case.
And if you've noticed, addiction doesn't stop for anyone.
No, no. You could
It's
have a perfect life, but
you can
still.
have a perfect life. I mean, oh, I forget the word that you used it because I know we can't use it. But what was I gonna say? I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Are we talking self deletion here?
Yes, but now I completely forget what I was gonna say. I forget. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I do that all the time.
I was like, I have a point to make, but I can't remember it.
I don't know. It's hard to explain. I feel like, I mean, under the law, we're all equal, but each household's going to be different. Everybody's going to be treated different. Your circumstances, you know, any man that puts his hands on a woman, and if you can't take no for an answer, well, most of us guys say, well, that dude needs to have his butt whooped and have
Mm-hmm.
his tallywhacker cut off, you know.
Yeah, right.
Most of us feel
Love
that
those
way.
words. Hmm.
But there are some of those guys who think that they're just entitled, you know.
Totally. And we're told that they were entitled. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
some of them like decide that for themselves, but others were just taught it. It's just like the norm. It's just, yeah. And I think that, I mean, that is one of the huge differences between men and women. The idea of being taken advantage of in that way, sexually. And I'm not saying women are weak, but I'm just saying if a 250-pound guy is in the elevator with you and you're 120 pounds and you're getting that vibe of, is he going to attack me or he's hitting on you, and you're super uncomfortable, you're in two different positions.
Right. So I guess my point is outside of the individual cases,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do I understand of a woman's struggle? I don't get it.
Yeah. It's kind of like a kind of like a guy, it's like not understanding childbirth, right? And but it's like, but you'll never experience it. So let's not, or women like having period cramps in class. Well, men don't have that. So they don't know what it's like to go a whole school day like keeled over, taking care of your hygiene, like crying at the drop of a hat, like your hormones are like but also it's more common and accepting for a woman to talk about that stuff and
Mm.
to cry and for people to feel sympathy and for physical ailments. But if a man's talking about something mental, you can't see it. It's not a broken arm where you're like, oh, I hope you heal. Oh, like oh my gosh, that stinks. Oh, did you cry? Oh, like a baby. But you were in like an awesome gnarly skateboarding accident and people are like, oh yeah, right. Oh, I'd cry like a baby too. But if you're saying I'm suffering mentally and I'm like, the world's closing in on me and I don't know how to cope, it's not, I feel the same way, right? Or like, oh, you'd have to look for those people who are able to share those true feelings.
In my case, I mean, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. Of course, I would like sympathy in the sense of, you know, maybe give me some advice or encouragement,
Yeah,
but
totally.
I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. And by no means am I a victim. I think I've proven that by the way I live my life, you know, overcoming alcoholism and drug addiction and
Mm-hmm.
trying to be a good man, trying to help others. I think I've proven I'm not a victim, and I want to help others to feel the same way.
Right. And kind of like we were saying before, the idea of like, but this is great news because you can have the ability to overcome it. Like when people hear sex abuse, they immediately think of a victim, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be that. That's why they change it to survivor. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Like,
That's right.
and because of these traumas and overcoming them, well, I can tell you, you can do it too. And I say that to everyone. I don't mean that like I'm trying to convince you. Obviously, you know this. I just mean in a general broad sense. Um, the idea of like, this is empowering. This is great news. And also, I suffered. So I don't want to say it's easy, but I can say it's accomplishable.
Right. And I think it says a lot if a man can break that cycle, because
Mm,
I see a lot of people that it's happened to them, so they go on and they do it to someone else. And
yeah.
in my case, mental problems ran through the family. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother on my dad's side, and my father, and he ended up deleting himself.
Sorry to hear that.
And mind you, I'm 5 years older than what he was when he passed away. Okay. I saw a lot of that stuff go on through that side of the family.
Mm,
And part of not being a victim is I said, I'm going to break that cycle. I'm not going to do that. Now, I
yeah.
won't say I didn't try it when I was younger, but I also didn't have the support that I have now.
And support is like the key word.
Mm-hmm.
And also the idea of like, you can free yourself at any time and at any age. So I've had men, I could think of about 4 to 5 men who admitted to being sexually abused. And these were men that were like 40 years old plus, and telling me that I was the first person they've ever told.
Wow.
And being so upset that they're that age and I was the first person they told, or they were like starting their journey to heal. But the point is, you started your journey to heal.
Right.
And some of these men, I could think of one specifically. I think he was 64. He said he told his parents, and they told him never talk about this again. You shouldn't have been over there. So
That's
and think
awful.
of how he was grown if he's 64. Like that was even, so it's horrifying hearing these things, but these men didn't feel comfortable to bring it up for years.
And that's what a guy lives through,
Yes.
because he's afraid that he's going to be looked down upon as you're not manly enough.
Mm-hmm. Or I should process this because why is Viagra so like, I shouldn't have to go to that. I should unheal, or I should heal these traumas, or I should start to unpack my mental health so that I can mentally move on from this, because it's affecting things physically and mentally during something that's supposed to be like intimate bonding and loving.
Yes. That's embarrassing for some guys to say, I can't perform.
And talk about feeling taking a hit to your masculinity, even though it shouldn't be that way, doesn't mean it's not that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't discount people for feeling like that. How are you going to say, just don't feel like that?
Hmm.
It's like people telling you, just don't be sad when you're sad. It's like, this isn't what I need to hear at this moment. I need you to hold space for me, and then we can talk about the next step.
I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, please don't take this the wrong way. You're a very nice looking woman. And
Yeah.
a guy coming and telling you these things, that's got to be kind of rough.
I don't want to say I feel sorry for them, because that means that it's not pity. It's my heart breaks for you that you didn't have this relief until this day and hour.
Mm.
But also, like, I'm honored that you shared this with me. Thank you for feeling comfortable enough. Now let's talk about how to get support. And also, I do share with them, like, this happens to more men than you know. The women's statistics aren't right, and the men's statistics sure as heck aren't right, because it would mean men are reporting it. It would mean, how can you take stats of something that's not reported?
You know who Terry Crews is, right?
Um,
I think
is this
he's
politics?
no, he's Terry Crews. He's an actor.
Oh, okay.
Used to be a football player, and then he got into acting. And think he hosts America's Got Talent or one of those shows. I don't remember. I don't watch
Does
it.
he like move his pecs?
Yes, that's
I
him.
know who it is.
I mean, he's a big guy,
He's a big guy, totally.
and it took a lot for him to come out and say that, you know, he was being sexually harassed. And you look at the size of this guy, and I think the other guys were telling him, "Oh man, you're just being a wuss," or I mean, look
I
at
like
you.
this. I wish women did this to me, right?
Right, right.
That's not an answer.
Um,
I know.
I mean, if a guy has any kind of morals, you're married, you don't want other women coming on to you. You know, it's one thing if it's a friendly flirt, but I mean, if you're trying to seduce a guy who's married, usually if you're true to your spouse, you're not going to be too kindly on that. I had
Offensive.
someone, yeah, someone started following me on Instagram. Okay.
Mhm.
And being that I have a podcast, you know, I do check out their account just because I don't want, you know, somebody selling me cryptocurrency and all this other garbage. It's a lot of them do.
Totally.
I look like an innocent person, so I was like, okay, I'll follow them back, you know.
Mhm.
And she had commented on one of the videos that I posted, and she really enjoyed the interview. And I'm like, oh well, thank you, you know.
Mhm.
And then the next thing I know, she's sending me nude pictures, and right away I
Oh
deleted it
my gosh.
and I blocked them. And I turned bright red, you
Oh.
know. Okay, I didn't ask for that. Just like a woman doesn't want some guy sending them a
No.
picture of a tallywhacker, you know.
No.
I'm not a prude by any means, but I don't welcome that kind of stuff. And to me, that's harassment.
That is harassment. And I think that's the other thing is the idea of like people would easily call that harassment to a woman, but men would make the joke first of I'd love for girls to send me nudes. Why aren't girls sending me nudes?
I gotta tell you something really funny real fast. I don't mean to make light of everything, but
Okay.
when
Sorry.
I first started dating my wife, uh I told her, I said, I'm gonna send you a dick pic, right? And I could just see her face. And so I sent her a picture of Richard Nixon.
Yes. I was like, what did you send her? Oh, did she love it?
She thought that was funny. She goes, you had me kind of worried there for a moment.
Totally. No one wants to get the warning text like, oh, just don't do it. That's a
And
good one.
you know, guys, don't think I'm perfect. I'm not perfect by any means, but you know, the things that I went through when I was younger, especially with my first marriage, I'm a little more careful with this one. So that's
Yeah.
why I don't welcome that kind of stuff.
No, it's highly inappropriate. It's so disrespectful.
Yeah,
It's like, who do you think I am
right,
that thought this was okay? Or my one of my favorite sayings is like, who raised you? Who
right,
what environment were you in where you thought that this was appropriate? Like even even if they had no idea you had a wife or kid, like knew nothing about you, it's highly inappropriate to do that to someone.
right. What if my wife had opened that up? What would
I
she have thought?
I
I mean,
can't
she
even.
knows me,
Yeah. So
but still, that's messed up.
no, I'd lose my mind if I saw it on my boyfriend's phone and I know he loves me more than anything. I know he's the man I'm going to marry and I would still be like, what happened here? Like what how did these come to be here?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And you help people with their not only their mental health, but their physical health as well.
Yeah, definitely. Cause I think it plays a part. Some like I was mentioning earlier, the idea of like holding trauma in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if if we were to talk about trauma, I would recommend someone to therapy. Like it would be my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
But someone kind of like what I was talking about, like in coaching, we want to talk about the present and more importantly, the future. It would be insane to think our past doesn't play a part in our present and future. It would be literally insane to think that. So at sometimes I have people work with me and a therapist at the same times, and other times I'm like, it would be inappropriate to take you as a client to do coaching, starting with therapy and unpacking that first as what I believe will best serve you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work with a coach, I can recommend someone else, but ethically, it's not appropriate to put goal setting in like this type of goal setting with where you're at in your journey. But back to the physical health. Back to the physical health. Even starting with the most basic things, hydrate yourself, get vitamin D, and go outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, I think when people think of physical health, they're like, I have to go to the gym 3 times a week for 45 minutes. But it's not that. You can do 5 jumping jacks in your living room and you got movement. And then the next day you can do 7 if you want, right? Like, you don't have to get into your workout gear and go out. You can just do these simple things. And I think also everyone's like, I want a yoga practice. I want a yoga practice. Just sit in front of your TV and stretch. Like it would be awesome if you went to a class or turned on a video. That's so cool. You don't have to.
Right.
I call it, like, you don't have to be balls to the wall. You can just start with like baby steps. And reminding people, like, you're playing the long game. This is a lifestyle change.
Oh, yeah, believe me.
And also reminding them, like, hey, it's 80% of what you eat and 20% movement. So, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, my diet's pretty healthy. But then I ask them a few more questions and I'm like, no, like, no. Yeah. So physical health, of just the idea of like, get movement and realize, like, you not being comfortable in your body is affecting other areas of your life.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I tell you what, when I first got serious about my diabetes, and I went to the endocrinologist, and they sent me to a dietitian, and I mean, I was doing everything to lose the weight, and I went from 240 down to 170, and I was so proud of myself. And then all this stuff happened, and then we had the lockdown and all that, and yeah, I could have done stuff at home, but with the ailments that I have, I guess I used that as an excuse not to move around like I should have. And so I put on 20 pounds, and I'm miserable. Mind you, I'm still 40 pounds lighter than what I used to be, but it's still
Right.
20 pounds is miserable.
Your body feels different. Your clothes fit different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys, because I used to be the same way, don't like going to the doctor. And I'm going to tell you what, I was one of these that, if I got a cut or something like that, I just, maybe I rinsed it off, but kept on going. Was at work, and I got a little tiny cut right here on my hand. Not a big deal. Didn't even bother to put a Band-Aid on it. In fact, I didn't even clean it until I got home. Went to bed that night, and I woke up, I can't tell you, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, and I'm sweating. And I'm trying to wake up, and all of a sudden I tried to move my fingers, and I couldn't move my fingers. So I went into the bathroom. My hands swole up like that big. And
oh my gosh.
oh my God, I was sick. So I went to the emergency room, and they had to go in and they had to clean it out really, really good. Some of the gristle had gotten into my blood and all that, right? That little tiny cut, you think it's not a big deal, right? Put me in the hospital. Antibiotics, the whole 9 yards. They're pumping stuff into my veins. So I'd tell my guys at work when I was supervisor, I said, don't care how small the cut is, let's take care of it right away, because you don't want to end up in the hospital. Because once again, we're taught, man it up. It's just a small scrape, just a small cut.
Right.
Look what it does. Same thing with getting a checkup. It took me having a heart attack before I even found out that I had diabetes. And I was 36 years old. So guys, get those checkups.
Get
Women
those
too.
steps. Yeah, because it's kind of like people who won't get on the scale or check their bank account. But no matter what, it is what it is, what it is. Whether you look at your bank account or not, there's $11 in it. If you get a checkup or not, like you have a vitamin D deficiency. Like all of these, um, yeah, there's so many things. And on like best case scenario, you realize nothing's wrong. And then you can stop with that pressure. Like you can release that. Another
Mhm.
thing is getting STD checks. People are so scared, but it's like, but it is what it is, what it is. And the longer it's in your system, there may be something to fix it, maybe not, but also there's lifestyle changes if something were to happen.
Yeah. Oh my God, what is it? Syphilis that would make you go crazy? Stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Especially if you have an active sex life and you're going from partner to partner to partner, get yourself checked on a regular basis.
Get yourself, I don't care that you're going from partner to partner, live your life, but it's irresponsible to put others in danger.
That's right.
It's just messed up. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Jeez. The things that you don't realize you put yourself in danger for. You know, when I went into the hospital and had my heart attack,
Mm-hmm.
my triglycerides were 1,500. And if you know anything about triglycerides, normal is 150.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're looking for around 150, right?
Mm-hmm. My my blood sugar was over 600. So I was about to go into a coma just because of that. But because my heart was pumping so hard, I ended up having the heart attack. And I didn't get to the hospital in time for them to put a stent in. So it was
Mhm.
just a regimen of the blood thinners. And if you ever had to take blood thinners, those are injections that go in your stomach, and it looks like you've been beat up by Mike Tyson.
And a lot of times, people who are suffering with that have a lot of inflammation, so their bellies are hard, as opposed to that like soft, jiggly almost,
Mm-hmm.
because they're holding on to all that water. So then it's even more like kind of horrific to watch it go in. You're just, oh my gosh, it's so, yeah. You're accepting like this needle's about to go in my stomach. All right, this is happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, balance is such an important part of our life, and I don't think people realize you have to balance your work, your family, spirituality. I mean, there's things that you have to get right, and you help people with their finances as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, especially during COVID, talk about a stress. I mean,
Wow.
finances is essentially something I talk with everyone about at some point, especially with partners losing their job and when partners were the main providers. Um, the idea of I can't get work done with my kids here, but I can't afford daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't afford where I live anymore. Now I'm down. I don't want to say downgrading. That doesn't downsizing. Downsizing. Um, no one wants to buy a house. How am I going to sell my house?
Yeah.
Um, I grew up, my mom had 6 kids. So, and my dad was a contractor. So if you've like met a contractor, you mostly get paid in chunks.
Mm-hmm.
So either a good amount of money's coming in or no money. So that's the idea of like, okay, are we eating like name brand cereals? Are we gonna have blank? Like, okay, no more gushers in our lunch. Okay, like you cut these little things out. All right, there's no family vacation, but family vacation something we really value. And now blank. My parents always did family vacations. I'm not saying that specific. I'm not even downing them. What I'm saying is if you're a good parent or a good partner, you want to be successful with your money, and you don't want to be worried about not making rent or your mortgage. You don't want to worry about your kid not getting new shoes for school. And yeah, and then your kids are upset, and it's hard to explain to them, like, we don't have money for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when kids around them, some of them do have money. Some people made more money during COVID. Some people thrive during COVID. So if you can't afford an iPad for your kid, but you're another kid in their school has 2 iPads. He has the latest one and one that's like 2 generations old.
Mm-hmm.
And your kid's told we can't buy snacks anymore. There's no more dessert at dinner. They're like, what the heck, mom and dad? And that's not fair. Back to like men having all these responsibilities. Like, kids want presents under the Christmas tree.
Yep.
And it's, yeah. And again, you see, or birthday parties, right? Some kids are getting like a bouncy house, and other kids are their parents can barely afford a cake. So the stress and like shame that comes along with that, it's so upsetting. For something like I'll give an example of layoffs, completely out of their control. Completely out of it. Especially, I have a few clients who they wiped out their whole department. It wasn't like, oh, we kept a few people and some were laid off. They wiped out the whole department, even their management team. Like, they didn't stand a chance. They lost their health insurance.
God, I couldn't survive without health insurance. And
Imagine the debt.
I know. I'm lucky that I get Medicare. Imagine
Nice.
those folks that can't, I look at, even though I have this disease, I'm still fortunate because I'm getting my check from the government, and I got Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, they don't have that. Let's face it, it's a luxury. It's a luxury that I have what I have.
And like, that's scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But I'll tell you what, though, if my wife didn't make the money that she makes, we wouldn't make it at all, because what I get it's not that much.
yeah, I live in San Diego, California, and you have to be making like 6 figures essentially to not be like suffering on some level.
One thing, and I'm assuming that you do teach people, is to be grateful for the things that they have, because gratitude to me changes your attitude.
That's another thing I do for my insomnia clients. Do a gratitude list in your head. And this one is specifically for when you wake up in the middle of the night, because then you don't have to grab a pen and paper for the brain dump or like turn on the light or something. And some people are like, I have nothing to be grateful for. My life sucks. I don't have, like, my wife left me. I don't have a job. My car just got repoed, right? But are you sleeping in a bed? Did you have clean running water? And if you're in the US, you have clean running water. Well, I don't know
Unless you're
what's
in Ohio.
I was just gonna I don't know what the heck is going on there, but for the most part, I think you know what I mean.
And not to make
and
light of that, I feel for those folks.
I shouldn't either. It's kind of sickening though that we have to now say this about the US, because it's like, oh yeah, we all have clean running water, but it's not the case. But or the idea of like, and I'm not in their shoes, so I don't want to downplay it, but wow, we're alive. My kids are alive. For the people who have the ability to move somewhere else, wow, we have the ability to move somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you focus on the negative and the darkness, I promise you, you're going to find it everywhere. You'll find it literally everywhere. It's so easy to find. But if
Yep.
you're looking for the light and positivity, it's also out there. If your news feed is doom and gloom, that's all you're going to see. But if you do positive quotes and leaders in your field and mental health and all these things, well, that's your new view.
Gosh, it seems that you get on social media, which is another reason why I kind of dropped away from it for as long as I have. All these people finding stuff to be upset about, to gripe about.
Right. You're
Uh,
looking for it.
I'm, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know how you feel about this stuff, but I think this whole pronoun thing is ridiculous because people are making stuff up. And how am I supposed to know this word you made up or that you changed your pronouns from what it was yesterday? But they get on and they think they're literally being killed because somebody got their pronouns wrong. I had a lady on here who was literally had just months left to live, but she was trying to get her book and everything out to help other people who were going through things that wasn't even as bad as what she was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And you're worried about some stupid little word. I mean, there's a lot worse out there.
And stop breaking us up. Stop. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, and I'm not saying everyone should be non-binary. That's not what I'm going for at all. What I'm trying to say is stop making more division. We just talked about it before. There's already division between men and women. We can't even get that right. We literally we can't get racism under control. And now you're adding more BS that does not matter. And you're persecuting me for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
now I have to explain this to kids. Kids are confused enough about life. Now I have to or now they're going to be forced in schools to be more confused. Like, I don't even understand. It's just, I don't know if this will blow over. I'm not trying to say it like nonchalantly, but I don't know how people are keeping up.
I don't either.
And I have trans clients and non-binary and binary from my contracting jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the first things I say is it's time to see a therapist and you need to unpack why there's so much anger behind the pronouns.
Yeah.
Because I have trans friends who are or people who are coming out as binary, non-binary, and they're like, this is new. You're going to mess up. This is new for you. This is new. Like, I understand. And then there's other people who jump down your throat and you're like, this is not a disrespect. This is not a form of disrespect. And you taking it as a form of disrespect is confrontational.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, at least my generation, we fought to get rid of labels. We all wanted to be on equal ground here. And now everybody's trying to label themselves and trying to divide each other up. And
Yes.
I thought we were all supposed to be, coming together and singing Kumbaya, that kind of thing. Why are we trying to separate?
What is the hypocritical? This doesn't even make sense. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm anti, just more of like, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back as a society to realize this is division.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is making people feel demonized for not following in the craziness. Like,
I don't know. The country had made a lot of strides because I grew up in the 70s. Okay. I saw the racism when I was a kid, but I also see how different it is now than what it was back then. And now it's like everything's going backwards and we get no credit for the strides that we have made. And I think that's contributing to a lot of the depression that's going on. It's like I'm going to be called a racist no matter what I do, even if I'm trying to ally with you or I'm trying to be equal with you. Where do
Yeah,
we go? The society is making things so bad for everyone.
right. You're crippling us as a society. This is what
Right.
I have to say. Because I work with international people too. So I'm saying this about like humans. I love and hate you all equally.
Right.
I love and hate you all equally. Like back to the idea of like we all feel sadness, we all feel hate, we all feel jealousy. Like
Of course we do. We're human.
we're human. Why are you pitting us against each other? Like that's what they're doing. And I know I probably shouldn't even open up the media, but the idea of like you are literally pitting people against each other. You're hand picking these stories so that it looks like it's way more prevalent than it is. And you're riling people up. You're doing this fear-based BS, riling people up.
Mhm. Well, look at social media. Honestly, it's not even the majority of people out there. It's a small amount of folks, but they have the loudest voices on there.
They're not
They're the
getting
ones,
canceled.
yeah, they're the ones doing all this. So you've got regular Joe Schmo over here who goes out in public and doesn't know, are you the one of those that are saying all this craziness on social media, or are you just my regular neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
Quite honestly, I go into our local Walmart or HEB or whatever, and I run across someone who's a person of color. I guess that's the term nowadays. And I don't know, but I try to strike up a conversation, and I haven't run across anybody who hasn't been friendly to me.
It it's the same as like police officers. They get a bad rep, and there are plenty of stories that show the like how horrific it is. There are
Mhm.
just as many police officers who got in it to protect and serve. That is why they're there. Or they went through some type of a trauma and that they're there to make sure others don't. I mean, the
Mhm.
firefighters are running into the houses.
Mhm.
Like these are people, but again, people are handpicking those terrible stories. So it's it looks like it's exasperated when it's really not. And again, but if you're looking for the stories about police officers beating people, you're gonna find them. You'll find them.
Of course you will. That goes all back to what I said about the case by case thing. You
Mm,
you have 100 people out here, and you got one bad person out of them. You can't say because of that one person that everybody's that way, because they're not.
because they're not. We should expose the like disgusting things that happen, but to scroll all day, to take that in, to read the comments, to get involved in the comments, some of these things,
Well, one incident happens and you see it, you're bombarded with that same thing
yeah.
for days on end. And I think a lot of folks see that, and then they think that it's happening all over the place, that
Mhm.
but it's one specific incident. But they're saying, oh, well, okay. And the media is very quick to put all the bad stuff out there.
You don't
But
see celebrations. You see the stupid Grammys.
right. I don't think anybody's watching that anymore anyway.
Who knows? I haven't watched that in like 10 years. I have no idea. I stopped looking into celebrities probably like 5 to 7 years ago. I just stopped looking into all of everything.
I, I'll tell you how long it's been since I've watched an award show was when Jethro Tull won heavy metal group of the year against Metallica.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, that's a bit that's a while ago. That's a while ago.
Oh, but seriously, you have a website?
Yes. It's my first and last name, so AnnieDelre.com, and that's ANNIEDELRE.com.
I will put that link in the description. But
Great.
and what about social media?
LinkedIn is my favorite.
Yes.
I really like LinkedIn because I really want as much professional like things as possible, meaning like the articles, there's still BS on it, right? Let's be honest. But and the other one is Facebook. I just recently got into Facebook. And that's fine. I'm not a social media fan. Like, I was off Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for 3 years. I just recently got back on.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even go back on Instagram. I don't have an Instagram. I don't even want to. I just made a TikTok like 2 weeks ago because I wrote a book for high school girls and I realized high school girls are on TikTok. It's time to get on TikTok.
There you go.
So
I'm going to put those links in the description as well.
okay.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and I feel like we could talk about stuff for hours.
I know. I'm so glad that we connected today.
Thank you. I hope everyone gets the right message from this. I'm not putting anybody down. If it seemed that way, I'm not. I honestly just want to bring some of this to light, that we can get help when we have problems. As a guy, I don't expect you to be perfect, because we're not perfect, but you need to talk to someone. If you don't want it to get out to everyone, talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, talk to someone. You're still a man. Just because you talked about your feelings doesn't mean you're not a man anymore.
If anything, I really think it makes you more manly. Kind of the idea of like, this thing makes you more mature. Do you realize that you're like at a level of awakening because you've reached there, like that acceptance? I'm sorry. I know we have to wrap up. I know we do.
Oh, no,
Like,
that's
so
okay. I'm super pawpaw. Well, just strive to be a better person. Let's get along. Jeez, honestly, and it's helping one another. I think that's another problem with the media and social media, is everybody focuses just on yourself. Everything's about me. It's what I feel, and it doesn't matter what anybody else feels. And I was taught that you're supposed to kind of help other people out. Give them a hand, care about others. So it doesn't have to be all about you. But thank you again.
Thank you.
Annie, I'd love to have you come back, honestly.
Oh, I'd love that. I mean, we have so much to talk about.
For sure. And I want you folks out there to come back. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd like it if you would like this and share it out. And for my regulars, you guys make it possible for me to continue to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. And as I said before, be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network